What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Ravi Wadden, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about whether you should lease or finance a 2026 BMW M3 Competition xDrive. So if you're in the market for this vehicle, I think you'll get a lot of value from this video. And even if you're just a fan of BMW M3s, I think you'll really dig this video because I'm going to talk about some really neat stuff from a finance perspective. So what we're going to do is take a BMW M3 that's for sale near me, and we'll plug it into the DriveMatch calculator. And the DriveMatch calculator is going to pull all of the data, like the residual values, the money factors, the base APRs, all of the rebates, and then we can determine whether we should finance or lease this vehicle. The DriveMatch calculator is $20 a month, but it can save you thousands of dollars on your next vehicle purchase. And it doesn't just work for BMWs, it works for any new car for sale in the country. And that $20 a month, it gets you unlimited VIN lookups. Now, from my perspective, if I were shopping for the BMW M3, I would rather lease this vehicle, and I'll explain why towards the end of this video. So what we'll do in the first part of this video is we'll structure the lease and the finance deal. We'll compare the monthly payments. We'll talk about how good of a lease deal this is in terms of value. And then in the last part of the video, I'll just show you what my personal preference would be, but it's really a close toss-up. You can't really go wrong either way, but for me, leasing just would be my preference. And like I said, I'll explain why. So if that sounds good to you, please be sure to like this video and please be sure to follow. And again, if you want to use the DriveMatch calculator, it's a product that we built at DriveMatch.com. It lets you structure your lease and finance deals exactly like a dealership would. It's available in the link in my bio or in the link in the description, depending on which platform you're watching this video on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are on the BMW of Bellevue website. This is a BMW dealership near me, and they have a 2026 BMW M3 Competition xDrive for sale. As you can see, it's in transit, but let's say I'm hypothetically shopping for this vehicle. I'm going to show you how powerful the DriveMatch calculator is. So all I'm going to do is copy the VIN number here. I'm just going to refresh the calculator. Let me refresh this calculator, and I'll take note of the MSRP, which is 106,450. So all I'll do is click on lease. I'm going to enter VIN. So we'll work on the lease numbers, then we'll work on the finance numbers. I'm going to click on enter VIN, paste the VIN number here. It's automatically going to pull up the vehicle, and then I enter the MSRP, which is 106,450. I'm not going to focus on a discount yet. Well, this car is really hard to get a discount on, but we'll leave the discount, we'll leave this field blank for now. And then what you want to do is enter your zip code. So my zip code here in downtown Seattle is 98101. And the reason you enter your zip code is because it's going to pull the lease programs on your behalf, and lease programs can be or usually are regional. So it's going to pull the lease programs for my zip. I'm going to click on Get Programs, and as you can see here, it pulled the standard lease rates and new vehicle special lease rates. You can click on the purple box, and you can see if you did a 36-month lease on a standard lease rate, you're looking at a 8.02% APR or a money factor of 0.00334. I'm going to go with the new vehicle special lease rates. I'm going to click this box, and if you want to see them, they are listed here. As you can see, for 36 months, it's 5.28%, which is much better than the 8% if you do the standard lease rates. And you know, obviously the way you'd qualify for this, it is based on credit, but I'm going to do the new vehicle special lease rates, and then just click on lease residuals, and it's going to pull the lease residuals for all of the terms for 24, 30, 36, 42. I'm going to go for a 36-month lease that allows for 12,000 miles a year. And as you can see here, it pulled the base residual value directly from BMW Financial, which is 55%. So what this means, residual value, for those of you that don't know, what this means is that this car is going to retain 55% of its value after driving it 36 months and 12,000 miles. So if I, drive 15,000 miles or do a 15,000 mile a year lease, if I click on 15, you'll see that the residual value will drop, and it dropped 2 points to 53%. If I go to 7,500, it will increase to 57, and at 12,000 miles, it's 55%. Now, the cool thing about the DriveMatch calculator is it's also going to pull the base money factor, and money factor is just the way they refer to an APR or an interest rate when you lease. As you can see here, the base money factor is 0.0022, which is equivalent to a 5.28% APR. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is important because the base money factor is the buy rate that the dealer gets directly from BMW Financial Services. And oftentimes, dealers will mark up this number, right? Maybe half a point, maybe a full point. And with the DriveMatch calculator, you know what the buy rate is. So even if the dealer is marking it up, you know that they're marking it up. And like I said, over the finance term or the lease term, this could alone save you thousands of dollars, and that's why the DriveMatch calculator is so powerful. Now, in terms of incentives, if you lease, there's only the military program, which is $500. I'm not going to qualify for that. So it's automatically populated the acquisition fee, which is $925. This is non-negotiable. It's standard to start any lease. And then we have a dealer fee, which is, let's just go with a round number. Let's go with $500. And then tax, title, license, registration fee, I'll go with, let's do $1,100. 1% of MSRP, that's pretty standard here. Registration and tax, title, license, very expensive here in Seattle, Washington. And then what you can see here is you can customize your duet signing amount. If you want to do a sign and drive, you're seeing your numbers right here. This is what your sign and drive numbers look like. So your total duet signing is $0, and then your monthly payment, including sales tax, is $2,003. And as you can see here, it's automatically pulled my sales tax rate based on my zip code, 10.25%. How I like to structure my lease deals is first month's payment due at signing. So it'd be $1,959 due at signing, and then I have a continuous or ongoing monthly payment of $1,959, right? Now what you want to do is you kind of want to play with the numbers, right? So if we did a 24-month lease, you want to see if this monthly payment's going to drop, or does it stay the same? So at 24 months, no, it goes up substantially, about $600. So I'm going to leave this at 36. Let's just check 30 months and 42 months. So 36 and 42, I'm going to go with 36. I think 42, you're just really pushing up against the warranty, and 36 months is a good amount of time to own a vehicle. And then what you can do is focus on the discount. I know this car isn't heavily discounted, but we did have one on DriveMatch.com that was discounted 2%. So I'm going to go with 2%, and you'll see how the monthly payment adjusts automatically. If I do 2%, it's dropped the monthly payment to $1,888, okay? Now what we can do is, as you can see, this finance box is blank. So let's go ahead and structure the finance deal, and then we can compare the lease to the finance. So when I click on finance, you'll see that the VIN auto-populated, the vehicle auto-populated, the MSRP automatically populated, the discount, selling price, everything automatically populated. But now we have to pull the finance and cash programs, right? Again, finance programs are different than the lease program. So let's click on Get Finance Programs. And we have the standard retail rates. And if you click on this purple box, you'll see the rates based on your term. For example, 72 months is looking like 6.09%. And then you have your special retail rates. So at 72 months, you're looking at 5.29%. So I'll click on special retail rates because I'm not going to qualify for the military rates. But if you want to see what the military rates are, here they are. And then I'll do a 72-month term. And the reason I'll do a 72-month term is because if I do 60, 48, or 36, it doesn't really change the APR, or it doesn't change the APR. So there's really no financial incentive to do a 36. You can just do a 72 and pay the vehicle off sooner if you choose to do so. But if you do a 36, and you come across some financial troubles, for example, you're not going to have that leeway. So 72 months is, I'll go with the 72-month term. And then again, you'll see this is the base APR. This is the buy rate that the dealer gets directly from BMW Financial Services. So dealers tend to mark this up. And again, with the DriveMatch calculator, you'll know if a dealer is marking it up, which could save you thousands of dollars over the course of your finance term. Now, you're also going to get all of the finance and cash incentives, right? So this BMW M3 doesn't have a lot of rebates, whether you lease or finance, but certain vehicles have like 5, 10 different rebates. You have Costco rebates, military, new grad, loyalty, conquest, right? And with the DriveMatch calculator, you won't ever miss out on a rebate again. Now, for this particular car, all of these finance and cash incentives are military, so I don't qualify for any of them. You'll see that the dealer fee carried over, the license and registration fee carried over, the tax rate carried over. And now in terms of the down payment, what I like to do is just match this to the lease. So I'll do the $1,888. Now, I know if you finance this car, you'll probably have to put more than $1,888 down. With the lease, you could probably get away with first month's due at signing. But I do this just to do an apples to apples comparison, right? And now you can see that with $1,888 down, my monthly finance payment is going to be $1,863, and my monthly lease payment is going to be $1,888. And ladies and gentlemen, typically, right, when you have a good lease program, you're going to be saving money over a 36-month term, like over the lease term. You typically save a lot of money, right? Because oftentimes it's $100, $200, $300, $400, $500 sometimes, depending on the vehicle. But as you can see here, these two are, it's pretty dead even. There's not really a huge advantage of leasing versus financing this vehicle, but I'll explain why I'm going to lease this vehicle later in this video. Just let me run my 1.25% rule of leasing on this vehicle first. So what I'm going to do is go back to lease and get my calculator out. And my 1.25% rule of leasing is just a rule of thumb that I use to determine whether a lease is a good deal. And this doesn't meet my threshold, but I'm going to explain why I would still lease this vehicle. So all you do is take the effective monthly payment, the month effective lease payment, which is $1,888, and then I'll divide that by the MSRP of this vehicle, which is $106,450. So $106,450, and when I do that, I get 1.77%. So if I multiply this by 100, make it a percentage, you get 1.77%. Now, typically, anytime you run this calculation and you get a number over 1.5%, which this is, that typically is a vehicle that I would rather finance instead of lease, because the lease savings are negated, right? As you can see here, you're pretty much neck and neck between lease and finance payments in terms of total out-of-pocket cost over 36 months. If you're under 1.5%, that typically is a huge advantage to leasing in terms of cost savings, and that's a vehicle that you should lease if you're under 1.5%. So let's go ahead. Under 1.5% is a good lease deal in terms of value. Under 1.25% is what I consider a great lease deal in terms of value. That's a vehicle that you should definitely lease. So the lease savings really get exaggerated at 1.25% or under. And anytime you're under 1%, that's like an amazing lease deal. So we saw a lot of these sub 1% lease deals on electric vehicles over the past couple of months, and actually over the past couple of years. And you can still get them on like Toyota Tacomas and, time to time different vehicles, but under 1% is extremely rare and definitely a vehicle that you should lease. But now, even though this doesn't meet my 1.5% rule of leasing, let's talk about why I would lease this particular vehicle. So the first reason is because of the residual value, right? So if we look at the residual value of this BMW, where is the base residual? It's 55%. Now, in my opinion, I think this is a extremely low residual value. So what this 55% tells me is that BMW estimates this vehicle to be worth 55% of its MSRP after 36 months. So if we take the MSRP, which is 106,450, gosh, that mouse doesn't work, 106,450, and let's go ahead and multiply that by 0.55, which is 55%. BMW is saying that this vehicle, you can buy this vehicle for $58,547 after or at the end of the lease term. This is your lease buyout option. This is the price that you would pay for the vehicle. Now, in my opinion, this lease residual of 55% is grossly understated. I think their base residual, the real life residual value of this vehicle is going to be closer to like 65, maybe between 60 to 70%, because these M3 competitions hold their value really well. So what does that mean? That means that if I lease this vehicle, I'm expecting $5, $10, $12, $13, $14,000 of positive equity at the end of the lease term. And I can kind of realize that equity in a variety of different ways, right? So what that means is the trade-in, so if this is the buyout value, and I think the real world value of this car at the end of the lease is going to be like closer to $70,000, right? $65,000 to $70,000. That means I have $5,000 to $10,000 worth of equity, positive equity, and I can realize that equity. And with this positive equity, if you realize it the proper way, it lowers the effective cost of the lease, right? And the second reason that I would lease this particular vehicle is because the lease includes gap insurance, whereas the finance does not. So you have to pay for gap insurance out of pocket. And then the third reason I would lease this vehicle is because of diminished value protection, right? So diminished value, what do I mean by that? So let's say you get into a fender bender, and I talk about this on my videos all the time, but let's say you get into a fender bender and you have the vehicle properly repaired, right? But now with a BMW M3, now you have an M3 that has an accident on its record, even though you got it properly repaired. And if you own it or finance it, you have to take that diminished value, because that car is going to be worth $5,000 less, maybe $7,000 less when you go to trade it in or when you go to sell it. Meanwhile, if you lease it, and for whatever reason you don't want that vehicle anymore, you can sell it at the end of the lease term, or you can just simply turn that car back in. And the last reason I think you should lease this vehicle is because of unexpected depreciation. Now, we know that BMW M3s hold their value extremely well, but what if the market changes and the value of these cars just tanks? Like, let's say there's some issue with the engine and let's just make up some hypothetical scenario, because I want you to think about these hypothetical scenarios anytime you lease, not just with the BMW M3. But if this vehicle is worth less than the residual value, then that negative equity is not your problem, right? With a lot of people, when they finance cars like Range Rovers or Teslas or 7 Series, 5 Series, when they go to trade them in or sell them, 3 to 4 years after they bought them or 2 years after they bought them, they end up with $10,000, $15,000 of negative equity, and the lease is going to keep you away from that negative equity. And for those reasons, I would rather lease this BMW M3. But again, it's a toss-up. I wouldn't say that financing it is a terrible financial decision, but for me, I think leasing slight edge to leasing. And again, if you want to use the DriveMatch calculator, it's $20 a month. You get unlimited VIN lookups. You can do this for as many vehicles as you want. So if you're cross-shopping like a Honda Pilot versus a Toyota Highlander, or a CR-V versus a RAV4 or a 5 Series versus an E-Class, you can do it with the DriveMatch calculator. And even if you're helping friends and family shop, you can run their numbers through the DriveMatch calculator and help them out. You get a lot of transparency. You get data that was only available to dealers for decades, essentially. And you can structure the deal exactly like a dealership would, as I showed you in this video. But if you have any questions about leasing or any questions about this BMW M3 in general, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching. Financial knowledge is power. Please like and follow for more.